Here we are. Tech stuff. It's not hard and it's not complicated. It's just sometimes it would really help to have a few pointers. For example, these guys. Yep, wired earphones. Why? Because if you are actually going to be recording and you're on something like Zoom that is network based, well, these don't take any bandwidth. Your Bluetooth, they do, which means earbuds, Beat Buds, Google Buds, I don't care which buds they are. If you're using a wired source for the audio that you're hearing, it's using up bandwidth. So a couple of quick things. One, get a color that matches your hair. Oh, hold on a sec. There's a little tool there. Two, I know. Two, in order for it not to do this, just because you moved, use a very old-fashioned tool. This. Recognize it? It's called a clothespin. Gather up the back of your wired headset and pin it. So gather up the wiring, get the back of your collar, get our handy dandy clothespin, and see how handy a collar can be. Oh, and if possible, get one that has a long cord. I guarantee you. Not only will it come in handy when, oh, I don't know, you want a sip of something, but it's also very handy because if you want to move around, you're going to be able to without unhooking things. Remember, they're just wired. They're just sitting in your ear. So again, to recap, use a wired ear set. Doesn't take any bandwidth away from the transmission and can be easily anchored into place. But is that the microphone that I use? No. This is. This is a Yeti. It is probably one of the best microphones I've ever had. It's also one of the most sensitive. Now, the studio is in the basement. And one of the things you may notice, particularly during a period of time that I've been recording when Michael's trying to sell his house, and so we had to take down all of the sound dampening baffles that I had attached to the cement. Now, sometimes you're going to get just a little bit of an echo and it has nothing to do with cement. It could have something to do with wallboard. I don't know. But anything that you have in the room that is your studio is going to have some sort of ability to either absorb sound or bounce it back to you. One of the other reasons for using a wired headset is this. If your microphone and your speakers are too close together and you're actually using the speakers in your laptop, well, then you automatically generate a little bit of an echo. Plug this guy in. And it automatically reduces it. It's a physical thing. After all, the microphone, which takes the sound in, if it's way too close to the place where sound also comes out, it just kind of loops around. Right now, I'm using very basic lighting. Hold on a sec. That's much better. Make it a routine to establish which lights you're going to use and which ones you're not going to use. It's possible to use some really complicated lights. Let's bring them in for their close-up. I know. But did I mention I'm in the basement? So not a lot of natural sunlight's coming through, which also means that under good circumstances, I have a lot more control over what's going on with the lighting. But if I just want to do a very simple thing with the lighting, I just have one line of sunlight lights established just ahead of where the table with the laptop's got my camera in it is sitting. Two, if you don't want bees, even if you do, learn how to get rid of unwanted sounds. Depending on which application you're using for your video editing, I use Final Cut. Not because I'm brilliant, but because I'm too stubborn to move to a simpler application when I finally learn how to use this one a little bit. But most of them have something called either hum removal or noise removal or both. Now, that becomes important, especially if your studio is in the basement, because so is the HVAC system. And it's just not really fair to ask the entire household to swelter because you don't want to have to listen to the air conditioner going off. Similarly, in the winter, well, can I just say get an electric heater that is silent for your work area? Because yours is actually probably going to be one of the coldest spots in the house. Lighting is one of those things where people sometimes get a little bit, shall we say, enthused. I mean, you know, there are 4 of these, by the way, 4. But more lighting doesn't actually always mean better lighting. Sometimes it means you just accidentally created some problems. And here's what I mean. You see those wavy lines in the green screen? If you are using a green screen, those wavy lines manage to absorb the light slightly differently in every single one of them. And as a result, they make superimposing any kind of background just a little more difficult. Also, if you're not using a green screen, and I strongly advise if you're one of those people who are way neater than I am, but you'll notice with the lights coming in this way, there are a lot of shadows now. And, I already have enough shadows with my wrinkles. I don't need any extra help on that front. So I'm going to get rid of those. Background, much cleaner. No dark cheek lines. And my glasses are not now putting a shadow on my eyes or my cheeks or I don't know. I've been wearing glasses since I was 9 years old, and that brings me to another thing. If you are using natural light, and if you have access to a window and you can position it so that the window is behind your camera, that is terrific. It's the absolute best light. It's a slight problem. Glare. If you wear glasses, you're much more likely to get a little bit of a glare from natural sunlight. So there's something very cool about being in this profession and learning how to do videos in this day and age. I couldn't quite figure out how to get rid of it, so I went on, ta-da, YouTube. And there was a marvelous woman, and then there was another marvelous woman, and there were like 5 women, 10 guys that included 5 that were teamed with women who did an absolutely wonderful job of explaining it. So here's what it came down to. You want to limit something called the incident. So in other words, Where the light would most directly hit your glasses, just block that. I know. It's kind of cool though, don't you think? The other thing I would strongly urge you to think about is just having a green screen, whether it's a big one or a small one of the kind that pops out. My friend Aiden Crawford, who is amazing, had one for 2 years before he finally took my word for it. Yes, it will fold back in. He wasn't actually sure for a while, but he finally got to the point where it folded back in, and that's wonderful. Those, by the way, tend to have far less wrinkles. You don't have to mess with the lighting for a nice smooth surface. But I would recommend doing that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives you a little bit more choice about what kind of background you're going to use rather than, okay, this is where I am, let's go ahead and do it. As an example, I thought it would be wonderful. I recently held a class in a hotel meeting room, and it had this gorgeous picture in the back, and it was wonderful. It looked terrific. The sound sucked. As a matter of fact, here's an example. Customer focused deliverable. Now, you may think that this shouldn't have to be one of the 7 keys to maintaining or increasing your competitive edge, but in fact, it actually is. Now, I'm not in my usual place because, well, things aren't usual, and some of us are still wearing. That echo was so bad that even the wizard of video editing wasn't able to get rid of it. He said, "You're just going to have to do that one over." But I've kept it as a reminder. Also, that was the only time in the past 2 years that I didn't use my headset to check the sound quality. And that's the other reason for having the headset. It allows you to check the sound quality. Now, a couple of other things. We're going to be going through 2 other topics in this suite or bundle of videos on presentation skills. And one of them I like to call wardrobe. The other one is we're calling it, oh yeah, that's lovely. Do you have anything that's a little more or a little less? Because jewelry does some interesting things with light. And for those of us who are rock hounds and we like the faceted ones, that can actually create a little bit of a problem. Now, sometimes it looks marvelous. Sometimes it just plays heck with the exposure. So you want to kind of be aware of that. Look, we like to make sure that we give you at least 3 things that you can do immediately. Oh, and by the way, we even have an option that might be a little less fancy, but possibly a little bit more affordable. You can go to a craft store and pick up foam. Now, the baffling is what makes this professional grade sound absorption. However, any soft surface will do. It can't be as thin as a curtain. It needs to be at least that thick. You can buy foam at the craft store. Not only that, but this is the size it comes in. And while it adheres to almost anything, I put these up the entire wall. I'm not looking forward to doing it again, frankly. So, actionable suggestions, some pricing alternatives. Don't skip on your microphone. Please don't skip on your microphone. Because if you skimp on the actual microphone, what you're going to do is you're going to make up for it in the amount of time that you have to spend in editing. So, wardrobe, We're going to talk a little bit about some do's and don'ts and some please don'ts. Jewelry or accessories, again, do's, don'ts, a couple of please don'ts. And by the way, in case you think this is geared to a particular gender, let me assure you it's not. As a matter of fact, we're going to address one of my favorite topics: ties and sports jackets. And then another thing that we're going to be closing out the series with is one on editing. Establish some master poses, as they like to say in theater. Something that you will naturally return to, so that if you have to do a jump cut, it doesn't look quite so awkward. But we're also going to do one called killing your presentation. And I don't mean in a good way, just because it's worth it to have a little bit of fun. I'm KimiKSP. The Leadership Driven Project Management Academy has brought you this video along with the dozens and dozens of others on the topics that pertain to leadership as it's practiced by project management professionals. You see, technical leadership isn't just about being the ace in the technology. It's also about acing and improving your leadership skills. We're happy to help as we can. Please like or subscribe. I've got to learn where those buttons usually show up. And if there's something that you'd really like us to tackle for you, let me know. My email's always at the end of the video. You can contact us, and who knows, we might already have it on the list, but if we do, we can move it up. And if we don't already have it on the list, we're happy to do it. And again, maybe move it up on the schedule. Thanks for joining us.